Alright guys, we're back with more fantasy baseball content, and here I'm going to re-rank my top 50 pitchers for fantasy baseball. But first, I want to thank everyone for being back here again, supporting the channel. These videos have been so much fun to make, and I appreciate all support I have gotten from you guys along the process. Again, the goal for the end of May is 7,500 subscribers, but we're also very close right now to 6,000 subscribers. So if you guys are watching this video and not subscribed, and would like to be notified whenever I come out with new videos, please go down there, click that big black subscribe button. Also, drop this video a like. But now let's get into it. I've been really excited to re-rank my top 50 pitchers because one, that video did amazing during spring training, and two, you guys just seem to respond to it so well. Got tons of great comments, and also my top 50 pitchers were pretty good. I said it then, I'll say it now. I think that ranking pitchers and understanding pitcher value relative to other pitchers in the league is probably my greatest strength in fantasy baseball. So it's a really fun exercise for me to be able to get these 50 guys out there, rank them, tier them, put them in order, figure out their strengths and weaknesses, figure out if anything has changed about them since the season began, and then kind of evaluate and move forward from that point. But also just to get some housekeeping stuff out of the way initially with this video, I really do not look at ERA when I'm evaluating pitchers. That might sound kind of crazy to you guys, but I really don't look at it, especially when we're just about 6 weeks into the season. A pitcher's ERA is really just a description of what's happened, not a prediction of what's going to happen. And what I try to do in these videos, especially these re-ranking videos, is predicting how valuable these guys will be for the rest of the season. So I'm much more looking at things like strikeout rate, walk rate, pitch sequencing, changes in repertoire, changes in stuff, those kind of things that can give us hints and clues as to which pitchers will be better from right now through the end of the season. Because again, all ERA is telling us is how many runs per 9 innings these guys have given up already, but it's really no determination at all to what's going to happen the rest of the way. Also, another piece of these videos, and something I will be keeping consistent with my rankings videos the rest of this month and the rest of the season, I'm not ranking injured players. If you're a pitcher, especially some of the guys I'm going to mention in this video, and you don't have a return date to the major leagues, if your next start isn't guaranteed to be in the major leagues, you're not a part of this ranking. I will do some quick asides and mention some guys who are out on rehab assignments and some guys who are probably due back before not very long, and mention where they would be ranked. But if you do not have a return date schedule to pitch in the major leagues, you will not be a part of these rankings. And that's just because pitching analysis changes so fast, things change so quickly, that if you're not pitching in the major leagues soon, it's really hard to consider you on something like this and compare you to other players who are pitching. So I will mention where some of the high-end, high-profile guys would be ranked and will be ranked when they're back healthy, but I cannot formally rank them if they're not pitching in the major leagues again relatively soon. But all right, without further ado, here are the rankings. Tier 1, these are the dogs. These are the absolute best pitchers in baseball. We have Tarek Skubal, we have Zach Wheeler, and we have Paul Skenes. First, Skubal, people were kind of scared about him through his first couple starts of the year. Scared, and big air quotes, scared, because he had 2 bad starts where he gave up 7 runs over 11 innings and only struck out 10 batters. But since then, it's been smooth sailing. Skubal is the best pitcher in the league still. Then we have Zach Wheeler, who wasn't on this top tier to begin the season. He was just below Skubal and Skenes, but he's still him. The strikeouts are there. He's not giving up any runs. Shame on me for not ranking Zach Wheeler as a tier 1 pitcher to start the season. And then we have Paul Skenes, who I do believe is clearly a tier 1 pitcher in the league and definitely still has all the opportunity to be the number 1 overall pitcher by the end of the season. But the Pirates sucking so bad really hurts him because that's going to hurt his ability to get wins. But his strikeout rate also ticking down a little bit does change things a little bit. It changes the fact of where his top ceiling is and why, again, still on tier 1 because still has amazing stuff, still suppressing tons of runs. Why right now he still to me is a hair behind both Skubal and Wheeler. It's really just a shame for Skenes because he was born to be a soft contact command merchant and now he's forced to throw 100 miles an hour. Just the crime of it all. He also has lowered his arm slot a little bit this season. I've talked about that a little bit some of my pitching videos, as some guys are lowering their arm slot. I'll talk about some of them besides Skenes moving forward here in effort to stay healthy, and that's dulled his stuff a little bit and it's taken his strikeout rate down a little bit again, where he was around 30% strikeouts last year. It's now just under 25%. Still a tier 1 pitcher, still one of the best pitchers in the league, but a hair behind both Skubal and Wheeler for me at this exact moment. Next is tier 2, where we have Cole Ragans, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, Jacob deGrom, and Garrett Crochet. And this tier are still aces. These are still SP1s on your fantasy teams. These guys are all still amazing. Start in, start out. You're counting on them to do incredible things. And this tier is also pretty flat. When I say this tier is flat, I mean, I could accept these guys in almost any single order, but I'm grouping them all together because I think they are worse than the top 3, but certainly better than the next big group. So starting with Ragans, I just objectively like him the most in this tier because he takes that ball every 5th day. He always pitches deeply into games. He gets tons of strikeouts. He has such a deep repertoire as a lefty with the changeup and the slider and the amazing fastball. He's really just an incredible pitcher. There really is not a flaw with Ragans. The only issue with Ragans is that his velocity has ticked down a bit over his last few starts. He's gotten later into games. We know that he's had some major arm trouble during his career, a 2 Tommy John surgery guy. So those big velocity oscillations scare me a bit, but not enough for him to be one of my top 5 pitchers in the league. Then we have Yoshinobu Yamamoto on the Dodgers, who's been just completely unhittable this season. And truthfully, I think Yamamoto would jump Ragans if the Dodgers had a 5-man rotation instead of a 6-man rotation. Because with the 6-man rotation, you pitching every 5 days instead of every 4 days on the 5th day, that 1 extra day between starts just means by the end of the year, you're going to be making about 9, 10, 11 fewer starts than some of the other guys who are pitching every 5th day, like I mentioned with Reagan's. Also, you have fewer opportunities for 2-star weeks, and we know how valuable those 2-star weeks are in our weekly leagues. So just because of that, Yamamoto's down a little bit behind Reagan's, but still, between his fastball, his splitter, his curveball, he looks unhittable so far this season. He's everything that was promised in free agency. The guy's an ace to the highest degree of the word. And then now, first injury mention, I have to say that this is exactly where Hunter Green would go. He honestly might be 4 or 5 ahead of either of these guys, but he did leave his most recent start with a groin injury, and he will be out for a few weeks. He was my biggest miss in the preseason. He looks like prime Jacob deGrom right now with a 100-mile-an-hour fastball and a devastating slider with the perfect command. Love Hunter Green. I definitely want to make sure he's okay first. Want to see him get a rehab assignment before he's back in the ranking. But hopefully he is back very soon before the end of May. Now, next we have Jacob deGrom, and you guys might yell at me for playing deGrom this high because I know he isn't as dominant right now, but I'm watching a guy who just seems to be totally relearning how to pitch, but still with elite stuff. The 97-mile-an-hour fastball down from the 100-mile-an-hour fastball, it's not missing bats at the same rate as it has for most of his career, especially not against left-handed batters who have been a bit of a struggle for deGrom this year because that slider's not as effective against them, but he's really beginning to find some nice consistency with his changeup. It's missing tons of bats, and he's trying to rework his curveball. He had the curveball working early in the season, then the shape was kind of wonky, the command of it was weird, wasn't missing many bats, was getting hit kind of hard. He got rid of the curveball. He's bringing it back a little bit more recently. The changeup is good enough to stand up to the left-handed batters, but that curveball, that extra little wrinkle he can show them, would make a huge difference as well. And again, I know it doesn't look really deGrom-esque right now, but he's still striking out hitters better than league average. He's still not walking many guys. He actually is pitching relatively deeply into games. And at the end of the day, the only damage that's been done to him so far is via the long ball. And home runs are kind of a wonky thing that are hard to track, where you can give up a lot of home runs quickly and not give them up the rest of the year. They're just the noisiest piece of statistical information that we have, especially early in the season. Hard to rely on them for good or for bad. So with deGrom, this is basically as good as we could have expected for him, and I still think there is a massive next gear that he can and will reach, which is why he's still ranked among the elite pitchers in the league here. Now, last on this tier, we have Garrett Crochet in the Red Sox, and he's honestly the one guy in this top tier of pitchers that I'm the most down on after watching the first 6 weeks or so of the season. And I understand his ERA is still really low, it looks really elite, but the stuff is not exactly the same. Similar to what I mentioned about Paul Skenes lowering his arm slot, probably in the hope of avoiding injury, Crochet has done the same. And also similar to Skenes, it's made all of his stuff tick down a little bit. If the stuff ticks down a little bit and that's in the name of actually staying healthy and throwing 200 innings, it probably is worth it. But as of right now, all of his pitches are like a tick or two slower in velocity. He has much less extension when he pitches, where his extension, how close he's releasing the ball to the batter, was always near the top of the league, and right now it's just barely above average, which again is dulling that stuff a little bit. And his cutter, which is always one of his trademark pitches, it's less tight, it's getting a little bit more wider of a movement profile, and all it's forcing fewer swings and misses. With all of those things changing, his walk rate is basically doubled, and as of right now, it's sitting over 10%, which is very worrisome. He'd have the highest walk rate of all of the pitchers in these top 2 tiers, and his strikeout rate is down from well over 30% where it was last year, which is super elite, to just kind of right around league average. Again, those are big changes and things that are scaring me about Crochet. He's really leaning on his sinker as well, a pitch he rarely used last season, and I'm a tiny bit worried about him while still acknowledging he's a super elite pitcher and he belongs in this tier. Also, Fenway Park, I don't know, again, it's weird with Crochet right now. He's in the back of this tier, where at the beginning of the season, he was in the top of this second tier behind the top guys. I'm noticing, I'm thinking, still too early to worry. Definitely not even close to being remotely panicked because the results are still amazing, but noticing some stuff with Crochet. Also have to mention, if they were healthy, both Spencer Strider and George Kirby would be in this tier. Strider, weird things going on where he came back, then he got the hamstring strain, and now they said he was shut down from throwing, which that to me is worrisome, where he went out with a lower body injury, and now they're like, oh, actually, no, the arm is not really right still. Then also George Kirby, who's made a couple of rehab starts. He should be back in a few weeks. The Mariners are slow playing him, and rightfully so. They have a lot in the line. Team's amazing this year, but those two guys, Strider and Kirby, if healthy, are in this tier. Now moving on to tier 3. These are the guys who are very close to being aces. They're definitely fantasy baseball aces. I'm totally okay if these are my SP1s in fantasy, but they don't have the same upside or consistency as the guys I've already ranked above. And that's Max Fried, Chris Sale, Hunter Brown, Logan Webb, Joe Ryan, Brian Wu, Michael King, and Pablo Lopez. So first up, Max Fried. The guy is sensational. The only thing that keeps him down here as opposed to the tiers above, again, need both the tiers because he can be a tier 1 pitcher in the league. He's pitching like that right now, is he just does not have the same strikeout upside as the other guys mentioned. He's running about a 22% strikeout rate right now, which for Fried is pretty good. It's a hair better than league average, but all these other guys we're mentioning, they're 27, 28, 29, over 30% strikeout rates. And in fantasy baseball, strikeouts are king, so that knocks down Fried just a little bit, kills the ceiling a little bit. Despite his incredible ERA, his incredible whip, his incredible consistency, how deep he always pitches into games, he's a rock right now. He's incredible. Next, we have Chris Sale, who the first rough draft of this list was much lower than he is right now. But in his last 2 starts, he looks like the Chris Sale of last season. He's another guy similar to Crochet and Skenes, where the arm slot dropped significantly this season. I talked about that a lot in my panic video a couple weeks ago with Sale. But he brought his arm slot back up in his last couple starts. His fastball is back to 96 miles an hour. And in each of his past 2 starts, he set a new season high in total swings and misses. Looks totally back. Maybe it was just a, beginning of the season malaise, kind of getting that arm back into shape. But I'm pretty ready to be back in on Chris Sale as a top 10 pitcher after watching those last 2 starts. Next, we have a new top 10 pitcher, one of my favorites, Hunter Brown, the Astros. And again, Hunter Brown right now is pitching like a top 10 pitcher. If you go back to May 5th of last season, he has the lowest ERA in the entire American League. And that all came from the moment where he reintroduced his old sinker into his repertoire to give an extra wrinkle off his 4-seam fastball against right-handed batters. He was unstoppable from that point on last season, having a 2.5 ERA, a 1.1 whip, and averaging more than a strikeout per inning over 150 innings to end that season, after his ERA was over 9 at that point last season, in the beginning of May. Now he started this season on the exact same track. He looks incredible. Top 10 pitcher in the league for me, Hunter Brown. I believe it. The next is Logan Webb in the Giants. And Webb is someone I was pretty down on heading into the season. He was way behind this on my preseason ranks. And that was mostly because his strikeout rate had been falling pretty fast over the last few years. But as of right now, he's striking out about 30% of the batters he's facing, and that really changes my opinion of Webb moving forward. Some of the big reasons he's been able to increase his strikeout rate so much is because, one, he's throwing about a mile an hour harder across the board. That's always going to help you miss bats. And two, he's really changed his approach against left-handed batters. He's such a heavy sinker guy, and sinkers will always perform better when you're throwing them as a pitcher against batters of the same hand. So if you're a right-handed pitcher against right-handed batters, that sinker's better because moving in on them, jamming them, getting it in their hands. But Webb, always as such a sinker-forward guy, was throwing a lot of sinkers, even to left-handed batters, because it was just one of his best pitches. And he would try to throw it on the front door, which means that he would kind of locate that pitch, have the intent to throw it at the batter's front hip, and then try to bang it back into the strike zone, get a little sneaky strikes. But now instead of doing that, he's actually starting those at-bats against lefties with sweepers. And he has a pretty good sweeper, but he's just bending that thing as a backdoor sweeper to steal strikes early in at-bats against lefties. And as he's stealing those strikes, he's getting ahead more often and throwing a bunch of cutters and changeups and just being able to put left-handed hitters away more easily. With those strikeouts being back, I'm very back. Logan Webb's a fantasy ace. Now we have one of my most aggressive ranks, both in the preseason and right now, is Joe Ryan and the Twins, who I really think is asserting himself as a fantasy ace. He's striking out tons of batters. He's not walking anybody. His home run issue from the past is in check right now. It's all there. Plus, his sweeper is outrageous. His splitter is solid and a really good weapon against left-handed batters. It's really all just coming together for Joe Ryan as he slowly, over the last few years, turned himself into a very complete pitcher. The one cause for concern, the one reason that could hold him back a little bit, knock him down one tier, is that, like I mentioned before, home run rate isn't really something that's stable yet. Just because he's not giving up home runs now does not mean he will not give up home runs later this summer. Also, his velocity is down a little bit from the peak velocity he showed last year. But when he was showing the peak velocity, he got injured. So I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but keep an eye on Joe Ryan's home runs because he's still susceptible to those. But as of right now, the guy's a blatant fantasy ace. Then we have another fantasy ace, Brian Wu, the ace that was promised, the breakout that was always intended. Wu looks incredible right now that he's healthy. He's throwing harder. He's finally not throwing as many sinkers to left-handed batters. He's looking more and more comfortable with his slider, his sweeper, his command is still incredible. He's striking guys out. He's just, I love watching Brian Wu pitch. One of my favorite pitchers in baseball. So happy for him he's healthy. Proud of him that he keeps improving. He is a monster. I really like Brian Wu. He even has the ability to go higher on this list as the season goes on, if he stays healthy and if he gets more comfortable with those breaking balls. Then we have Michael King and the Padres, just solidly so amazing. The command has kind of been in and out for King at times this season. It stopped him from going deep into games a lot of the time. He also has a complete game shutout on his ledger. And his fastball shape is trending up, especially compared to last year. Last April, King was struggling a lot, and a big reason for that was because his fastball wasn't where he wanted it to be. Right now, compared to last April, it has a better shape, more ride on it, more induced vertical break, and is missing more bats, and he's throwing it hard. That's a huge check mark for me, and again, King is just a rock. Very stable starting pitcher one in fantasy, and a really high-end SP2. Now, the last guy in this tier is Pablo Lopez, another one of my favorites. He became so underrated last year because he gave up a lot of home runs early in the season. His ERA looked kind of ugly for the entire year, but under the hood, he was still always practically the same guy. And as of right now, he looks even better than he did at any time last year. He's throwing more of his really gross sweeper to right-handed batters and fewer of them to left-handed batters. That's an amazing platoon advantage for him. And he's doing something really cool against lefties. And I'm going to show you some things on here to visualize it, where he's kind of intending for every pitch to go in the same spot. All branched off this fastball is always going to be intended to be high and away for him. And he has this incredible just banana peel coming of his repertoire off it. It's a really beautiful thing. And you can do that when you have as many good pitches and as good command as Lopez does. It's all coalesced him having tons of strikeouts, not many walks, tons of ground balls, barely any hard contact against him. Just, it's perfect for Pablo Lopez right now. I really love what I'm seeing out of him. Next up on tier 4, we have Framber Valdez, Dylan Cease, Corbin Burns, Carlos Rodon, Freddie Peralta, and Jack Flaherty. And these guys are just below the ace tier. Very stable pitchers in fantasy baseball, very solid SP2s. Just with something I really don't like about them, at least don't like them enough to be on that same tier of the guys above us. And also just maybe even missing that floor or that ceiling. It's just something something for each of these guys. And starting with Valdez, he's A-okay. He's a steady dude. He's a rock despite some rough starts early in the season. I am always worried about the mileage on that arm, and as of right now, he's not suppressing hard contact the same way he has in the past, and he always walks a couple guys, so his whip is always going to be a little out of control. He will be a bit more susceptible to the blow-ups of, again, the guys listed above, but very reliable. Love for Amber Valdez. Then we have Dylan Cease, who this season kind of has been the bad version of Dylan Cease I warned you guys about in the preseason. He's gone full throttle into being a slider primary guy, and I think because he's throwing that slider as his primary pitch, he's dulled the movement on a little bit so we can try to control it a little bit better. But even with that, he still can't really command it. So when he can't command that pitch and his fastball command also wanes a little bit, now Dylan Cease just out there with chaos. And he's had a few starts this season where it has just been this kind of market chaos, and it's really hard for him to get in and out of at-bats quickly. I will give him some credit though. I've always chastised Cease for not having reliable third pitch. He's trying really hard to have reliable third pitch this year in his changeup, but this pitch is such complete chaos. He really has no idea where it's going anytime it leaves his hands. The reason it works is because it moves so weirdly compared to the rest of his repertoire, and it's a great velocity difference with his fastball. So again, he's getting some swings and misses on it. It is helping him a tad, but he has no clue where this pitch is going, honestly. And then with that, in his most recent start against the Yankees, when he took his no-hitter into the 7th inning, he did the opposite of all these things I'm talking about. He was not a primary slider guy. He led with his fastball for his first start this year, and he got rid of the changeup entirely. So if that is the Cease we're going to see moving forward, I'd very easily move him up to the next tier around guys like King and Wu and Pablo Lopez for the next update next month. But as of right now, because of what we saw in April, I don't know if this new change is going to be consistent through his next starts or if it was a one-start thing, but keep an eye on that. Both how much Dylan Cease is using his slider compared to his fastball and whether or not that changeup is still in the mix because the pitch is nonsense. Then we have Corbin Burnes. So I'll be honest with you guys, he's up here on legacy. He looks terrible again, even worse than he did most of the time last year. Strikeouts are trending down, way down as of right now. His color looks pedestrian. The shoulder issue that forced him to miss a start is scary, but all that and he still has like a 3.5 ERA. Again, not an ERA guy, not an ERA YouTube channel. I can't help but be worried about Corbin Burnes, but I also can't help but trust a guy with this much of a body of solid work. Keep an eye on that shoulder though, because I don't like seeing shoulder injuries in early May. Now we have someone who might be a little surprising here. It's Carlos Rodon of the Yankees. Rodon's just been amazing this entire season. It's kind of been overshadowed by a lot of the chaos happening with the Yankees, all the crazy Devin Williams stuff and Judge just being the best hitter ever. But Rodon's fastball velocity is great, especially compared to where he's been in the past in April. His slider looks amazing, missing tons of bats, and his changeup, which has always been a big linchpin for him, something that's never been that consistent, especially in the way he's used it against righties when he really needs it. It's been awesome so far. So that to me is like a check, check, check for Rodon. And on top of that, just to add a new wrinkle, he's throwing his sinker, I'm not joking about this, guys, for the first time in 7 years. He's meaningfully reintroduced that pitch to his repertoire. So cool to see him do that. I know the Yankees like when guys have multiple different kinds of fastballs. I really love seeing that changeup consistency from Rodon. I trust him a lot. Really solid all around, truthfully. Then another guy who's always very solid all around, Freddie Peralta. The strikeouts are there, missing bats. He's even throwing a little bit harder this year, which is awesome. But he's also weirdly changing a lot of things as someone that's been so consistent for like 4 or 5 years now. He's getting a lot more natural cut on his fastball, where Peralta's always had a good fastball shape where he had a little bit of cutting action and a lot of that rising action, that good induced vertical break. But now it's cutting a lot more. And I don't know if that's intentional or not, but it's really helping him suppress hard contact, which is the one thing that Peralta's always struggled with. I don't know if he'll keep that up. I don't know if that's an intentional thing, but it's cool to see. Also, he's always been such a slider-heavy pitcher on top of that fastball, but this year's more curveballs and changeups than that slider. It's actually a true 4-pitch mix for the first time ever for Peralta. And both of those pitches are missing tons of bats, and he's commanding them well. I love Freddie. Then lastly, in this tier, we have Jack Flaherty. Openly, never been one of my favorite pitchers in the league, but right now he's getting tons of strikeouts, not walking anybody. It's really hard for me not to rank him as a fringe top 20 guy when he's missing this many bats and not walking anybody. I will say though, his velocity is not very good. It's around 92, 93, which is a spot that at times Flaherty has struggled with, but I'm choosing to trust the strikeout minus walk rate, and that's where I'm at. Also have to mention before we move on, this is a tier that Shota Imanaga would be in. He's out for a few weeks with a hamstring strain. Want to see a rehab assignment, but he would be in this tier with these guys. Shota Imanaga, definitely in this tier. Now the next tier, we got the young studs, guys I would not be upset if they were my SP2s, and that's Mackenzie Gore, Spencer Schwellenbach, Christopher Sanchez, Jesus Luzardo, and Bailey Ober. Now first with Gore, I've mentioned him so many times in the channel this year, and he's just becoming a dude right before our eyes. He's one of the few lefties in all of baseball that has an elite fastball, literally one of the 4 left-handed starters in the entire league that has a fastball that averages over 95 miles an hour, and it's got great shape, it can live at the top of the zone, it's an awesome pitch. Then after that, his curveball's amazing, sometimes the command goes in and out, but the pitch is awesome. And this year, the big thing for Gore, which I've mentioned a few times on this channel, he's developed a slider that has a movement profile in between the fastball and the curveball that can kind of bridge them all together. He was throwing this pitch last year, but he kind of scrapped it midway through the season, and it had a very different movement profile. Now when he brought it back, he took a little bit off it, has a couple more inches of drop, and he's commanding it much, much better, as he's commanding the whole repertoire better. He's throwing that slider basically the exact same amount as his fastball as a borderline primary pitch against left-handed batters, and it's forced nearly a 50% whiff rate and a 1/3 .230 batting average against. That pitch is really important to him and has tied everything together for Gore. The craziest thing about Gore is that there's still tons of upside left, because while the command is better, it's still not even great. It's pretty good, but it's not great. And I think it can be great. If that command becomes great, he could literally become a top 10 pitcher at some point this season. I love Mackenzie Gore. Next, we have Spencer Schwellenbach on the Braves, who the first starts of the season kind of looked like a Cy Young candidate. Now he's pulled back a little bit. The strikeouts are down. He's not missing as many bats. He oddly only has one start this season with more than 6 strikeouts, which doesn't really feel right to me. And that's because he's developing some mildly worrisome splits against lefties. His curveball and splitter are not missing bats at the same rate they did last year in his breakout rookie season. But I still trust the stuff. I still trust the repertoire. I trust the command. I trust the guy. I trust Schwellenbach. Then we have Christopher Sanchez in the Phillies, who we're just very thankful for Sanchez that his forearm injury scare has turned into nothing. He's rebounded in a big way in his last 2 starts since that, but he has pulled back his peak velo in a legitimate way, which maybe he was overexerting himself when that happened. With pulling back that big velo, the strikeouts are trending back down. So that's kind of the linchpin for Sanchez, where at the beginning of the season, it looked like he was going to become a 30% strikeout rate guy with the elite batted ball metrics and someone who was a horse that could pitch deep into every single game. Now, if those come back down, not all the way to the 20% he was last year, but like a 24%, still a really good starting pitcher. He's the kind of guy who could easily jump up another tier, but want to see where he winds up with the forearm injury, with the velocity still being up and down a little bit. And the big thing about Sanchez is just how amazing he is at suppressing hard contact. His most recent start he made against the Rays, they put 14 balls in play, and none of them had the chance to do any damage at all. Literally, they put 0 balls in play that actually had the chance to do damage. Of the 14, 12 were hit on the ground, and 2 of them were pop-ups. So 14 times the Rays made contact in one start against Christopher Sanchez, and nothing bad could have ever possibly happened. Next, we have Sanchez's teammate in the Phillies, Jesus Luzardo. And the biggest thing for Luzardo always is how hard is he throwing? Because in his career, when he's throwing harder than 96 miles an hour, he's an amazing pitcher. When he's not throwing 96 miles an hour, he's not a good pitcher. Right now, he's sitting about 97 miles an hour, so he's an amazing pitcher. I will say, though, in his most recent start, that velo trended back down towards 95 miles an hour, and the strikeouts were not there. It's just one start, a little bit anecdotal, but always keep an eye on Luzardo's velocity, because this fastball doesn't really have a great shape on it, so he needs the velocity to use that fastball to miss bats, because without a good shape and then without elite velocity, then you get torched. Also for Luzardo, he's meaningfully introduced a sweeper to his repertoire this season for the first time, and it's been gross, 50% whiffs. Now, the last guy in this tier is Bailey Ober on the Twins. And I think Ober is perpetually one of the most underrated pitchers in baseball, because he's never popping on stuff miles, he's not getting gaudy strikeout rates, he looks like Gumby kind of, because he's like 6'10" and thin as a rail, but all he does is produce. His ERA is down to 3.5 after an 8 earned run over 3 inning blow up in his first start of the season. That's amazing to rebound an ERA so much like that this early. His fastball is missing more bats. Also, I think he's changing the movement profile on his slider a little bit. He took a few ticks off it, and he's got 4 extra inches of drop and 2 extra inches of horizontal movement. Again, seems like he's doing that intentionally, trying to manipulate that shape a little bit more, get more depth on that pitch. And with those changes, the swings and misses against it are up significantly. It's great to see a guy like Ober, who's been so successful over the last few years, keep tinkering a little bit, doing new things. He's also mixing in more curveballs against left-handed batters. Those sliders are coming more often against the righties. Still leans on his very good changeup. He's out there every single 5th day. He doesn't walk anybody. The guy's just solid as a rock. I'm really high on Ober compared to the consensus. Now, moving on to the next tier, we got reliable veterans who still have solid ceilings, and it's Aaron Nola, Nathan Eovaldi, Sonny Gray, Zach Gallen, and Robbie Ray. So first, starting out with Nola, people were freaking out about Aaron Nola for the first few starts, and it was fair. His ERA was in the 6s, looked terrible. But Nola does this thing every single year. I wish he would stop doing it. Maybe one day he doesn't do it, but maybe it goes in the other direction, where it takes him a few starts to get his velocity back. Nola always lives in that 92-93 range, and he has such good command and so many good secondary pitches that he can succeed with 93 mile an hour, 4-seam fastball and sinker. But early in the season, he was around 90-91, and the pitch was getting pelted. Now again, back to 92-93. We trust Nola inherently at that velocity. Then we have Nathan Eovaldi in the Rangers, who's been outrageously good this season. Nearly a 30% strikeout rate and one of the lowest walk rates in the league. Amazing. He's blending his 4 pitches incredibly well, but I am just always scared about Eovaldi with the big injury happening, with him even just missing a month at some point this season. That's the one thing keeping him down on this tier compared to the tiers above, but I'm very comfortable with him with these, stable veterans that we've really come to trust over the years in fantasy baseball. Just like Sonny Gray, who had a little bit of a lull with his strikeout rate in the early part of the season, but now he looks totally back. The guy we've always come to know and love. Then we have Zach Gallen, who was pretty rough out of the gate. Another guy I talked about in my panic video about 3-4 weeks ago now, where his fastball was much more inconsistent at the beginning of this season than it has been in the past. He lost some of the natural cut on that pitch that made it so effective, and with losing that cut, either he wasn't able to command it as well, or he was a little bit scared to throw it up in the zone, and he was throwing it low in the zone. When he was throwing that fastball low in the zone, it made his curveball less effective, because usually he tunnels that high fastball with the low curveball, and they look exactly the same until the last moment for a batter. So without being able to set up the curveball, he wasn't able to use the curveball as effectively, and that's his out pitch. Now in his last few starts, though, the fastball has the good shape and it's high again. The curveball's low off it. Feels like the same guy he's always been. I trust Zach Gallen, especially as someone who routinely works deeply into games. Every single start, he's being pushed near 100 pitches, where a lot of other guys now are kind of more in that 85-90 range, especially in April. Gallen is sneakily one of the best workhorses in the entire league. And now the last guy in this tier, Robbie Ray. It's kind of cool that we've gotten the entire Robbie Ray experience in the first month of the season, where there were a few starts where he couldn't command anything, and he walked the entire world. He had one start against the Phillies where he barely got out of the first inning. But now the command is back, especially on his fastball. His slider is amazing playing off it. He's used his new changeup that he learned from a Tarek Screwball grip in the offseason, and he's even mixed in a couple knuckle curves for good measure. Ray looks awesome when all four of those pitches are working, and he's able to locate his fastball to actually get ahead and start at bats, and not fall behind and try to be perfect, and then winds up walking the whole world. There always is that risk with Ray that you get these inconsistent stretches, but especially him in San Francisco and that amazing park to pitch in with a good defense behind him, Robbie Ray's a great arm to have. All right, now moving on to the next tier, starts to get really weird really quickly, and I'll explain to you guys why. But this tier specifically, it's Kodai Senga, Bryce Miller, Seth Lugo, Nick Pivetta, Reese Olson, Tanner Bybee, and Chris Bubich. So starting with Senga, I know he has the lowest ERA in the National League and the second lowest ERA in baseball. I know that, I get that, but I told you guys at the top of this, I really don't care at all about ERA when I'm doing these ranks, because they're meant to be predictive. How good a pitcher will be for the rest of the season, not how good they've been to this point. And with Senga specifically, again, while that ERA is really low, the strikeouts are nowhere near the level they were when he looked like an ace in 2023. And on top of that, the walks have been an issue. He's walking over 10% of batters faced. So if he doesn't have an elite strikeout rate and he's walking more than 10% of batters he's facing, to me, it's kind of a recipe for disaster. And he's been so good this year at getting in trouble, working out of it, making big pitches when he has to. He's so cerebral on the mound. I love that. You guys see the Mets poster behind me. There is some concern seeping in about when do these strikeouts actually begin to come. And there is something, a little something. I don't know if it's something. I don't know if it's nothing. But I have been interested with Senga this year as to why he's not throwing his cutter as much, especially against left-handed batters. That was the adjustment that kind of made him go all the way up in 2023 during his first year in the big leagues. And just getting a more inconsistent movement profile on it. And I think that's why he's not throwing as much. He has been more consistent, though, with both his sweeper and his slider. But all three of those pitches are just not moving as much to his glove side. And you want those pitches moving to your glove side. You know, slider, sweeper, cutter. Those are coming across your body. So again, there's something about that that's not working right now for him. Maybe it's a mechanical thing. Maybe it's a grip thing. Maybe it's an intent thing. He did bring back that cutter in a meaningful way in his most recent start against the Diamondbacks. And that was really good to see. But while Senga is keeping runs off the board at one of the best rates in baseball, the under the hood stuff is still just not there yet for me to jump him up a few tiers. Next, we have Bryce Miller. And I'll be honest with you guys, this is all bias. Bryce was my Cy Young pick before the season. I loved what he did at the end of last year. And he's here just simply on the vibes because he's been horrible this season. He's not striking anybody out. He's walking too many guys. His fastball is not getting as many whiffs, which is really worrisome to me. And he's someone who's just such a tinkerer. I know that all of these pitches are moving a little bit differently. He's trying new grips. He's trying new things. And this happened with Bryce Miller at the beginning of last season, but then he went supernova from May until the end of the year. So I'm just choosing to trust Miller, even though right now there's nothing actually in the profile that's making me think positively about him. Nothing underlying, nothing under the hood. It's all about knowing the pitcher he is and watching him do this last season, and then everything clicked, and then he was someone who's putting up Cy Young caliber numbers. Then we have Seth Lugo, who maybe should be ranked a little higher. Maybe he should be in that tier with Nola and Sonny Gray and those guys, and he does feel like one of those guys to me, but he's just not striking out as many batters as the guys in those tiers. But don't overthink things with Lugo. He's a rock. He's steady, mixing 10 pitches in whatever he does every single start. Then Nick Pivetta, who's just like, oh, finally, the fantasy baseball community is so excited about Pivetta because he's had it forever. He's always had the good fastball, the good slider, the good curveball for years in Boston. He had amazing strikeout minus walk rates. He had amazing Sierra. All the underlying stuff said that Pavetta's probably a top 20, 30 pitcher in the league, but the results never bore it out because Fenway was such a tough place to pitch. Now in San Diego, it's all come together. He looks incredible. He is the kind of guy, though, that I do want to see it for a little bit longer before I do officially anoint him as like one of the 25 best pitchers in the league. But another month out of Pivetta, he's going to be right there around Freddie Peralta and Carlos Rodon, 2 tiers ahead. Also, something underratedly great about Pivetta, he's quietly become a bit of a workhorse. He's gotten at least 6 innings in 4 of his 7 starts this year, and dating back to 2021, he's in the top 20 in all of baseball in innings thrown. Then we have Reese Olson on the Tigers, another one of my dogs heading into the season. A few not so good starts to start the season, but now my guy is cooking. Only 3 total earned runs across his last 4 starts, and that changeup and slider, the piss off speed pitches that are so good, that he's so good at commanding, are just absolutely dancing right now. Each of them has over a 45% whiff rate, which is just crazy, and that changeup has become his primary pitch to left-handed batters. Olson has struggled a bit with left-handed batters, not so much, but a tiny bit because his fastball is not very good. But using that changeup as his primary, using a sinker against them, which I don't really love the sinkers for righties against lefties, but his command is so good that he's able to dot that thing inside where he needs it to be. So for him specifically, I'm okay with it. And then with that sinker, with him using that sinker early in the count against lefties, it's allowed him to pull back with his fastball a little bit, but pick his spots with it. Use it later in counts. Use it as a put-away pitch. Blow it by guys when you wouldn't be able to blow it by them in the past because they'd kind of be sitting on it. With that, the whiff rate on that fastball is doubled, and a guy like Olson who's just making these little tweaks, figuring out the proper sequencing, using pitches in places that other pitchers wouldn't be able to because his command is so good, that's just a pitcher right there. I really like Reese Olson. I'm going to be much higher in Reese Olson than basically any other person who talks about fantasy baseball on earth, but I love this guy. I love seeing what he could do start in, start out. Now, next up, we have Tanner Bybee, who's been very disappointing to start the season, and that's because his cutter, which is usually his bread and butter, has been crushed. It's always been his out pitch, and it's always been really good at both getting swings and misses and getting soft contact. But so far this season, there's no soft contact. Hitters have a .524 slugging percentage against that cutter, where last season, that number was .235. That's a massive, massive difference. That's like going from a backup catcher to a premier power hitter against that cutter. Huge problem. But I'm willing to chalk this up to just early season weirdness, small sample weirdness. I have to keep Bobby up here because, again, he's been good for a couple years now. I know he's a good pitcher. The repertoire just isn't that special besides that cutter. So if he doesn't get that thing back by next month, he's moving down these rankings, even though he's already moved down them a good bit to start the season. Now, the last guy in this tier, Kris Bubic, probably the biggest surprise of the baseball season so far. The guy's unhittable. His fastball, changeup, and sweeper all mixing together are incredible. And it is weird to see a guy like Bubic, who was so bad early in his career, be so good now. But he did this really cool thing that I've heard Mike Soroka and Spencer Strider talk about, where if you get Tommy John surgery, it's the one opportunity you have as a pitcher to meaningfully change your arm slot and change the way you throw your fastball enough to actually really transform the shape. And the shape on Bubic's fastball has gone from horrible to really, really good. That's how his 92-mile-an-hour fastball is able to be the actual foundation for someone who looks like an all-star so far. Also, Kansas City is sneaky a great pitcher's park. I really like what I'm seeing from Bubic. He's going to move up these ranks a lot if he can sustain what he's doing now over the next month of the season. Now, second to last tier, this is both the Rays and Chaos tier. It's Shane Baz, Drew Rasmussen, Ryan Pepiot, and Sandy Alcantara. We're sticking in Florida for this tier. First with Baz, I really liked what I saw at the beginning of the season, but it's been a disaster over his last few starts. He got torched by the Phillies last Wednesday, and he's given up 18 earned runs in his last 19 innings pitched, with just 13 strikeouts and 10 walks. That is so bad. I'm still choosing to trust this stuff with Baz. I'm definitely a little worried with how bad his command and execution have been recently. Still, if I'm making a buy low video, I think Baz would be at the top of that. Then we have Drew Rasmussen, who also looked amazing early in the season. The fastball, the command, the life, everything looked awesome. But now over his last few starts, especially a guy with Rasmussen, we don't like to see this because he's kind of made of glass. The fastball shape has been trending down. He's lost about 2.5 inches of induced vertical break on his fastball from April 12th to right now when I'm recording this video. So that means that fastball is getting less and less and less movement at the top of the strike zone. It's been easier to hit. It's missing less bats. Rasmussen needs that fastball to have the peak life because he really kind of only throws fastball. It's mostly the fastball, the sinker, and the cutter being mixed together. So part of that's his command, and part of it's the amazing shape that he has in all of those pitches. If that shape continues to trend downward, he's not going to be a top 50 pitcher anymore. Then Ryan Pepiot. I wanted to put Pepiot a tier above, but I just can't do it yet because he really hasn't shown enough. Despite the fact that really nothing is meaningfully different for Pepiot compared to last season, he's not getting as many strikeouts. He's falling behind hitters too often. He's walking more guys. I really don't know. I'm really just kind of waiting on Pepiot because I love the stuff and I love the approach so much. I think he is going to break out, but he hasn't, so I can't put him there yet. And then lastly, Sandy Alcantara. Been getting a lot of questions and comments about what to do with Sandy Alcantara. People ask me if they should drop Sandy Alcantara. Do not drop Sandy Alcantara. When guys have Tommy John surgery like Sandy did, the stuff comes back first, the command comes back second. And what we saw from Sandy was great stuff early. We saw the 97 miles an hour in spring training. He's still throwing hard, but the command is not there. He cannot put these pitches where he wants to put them. On top of that, small sample stuff. He's only made about 6 or 7 starts this season. 2 of them were against the Dodgers. That's terrible luck. Trust Sandy, another buy low guy. I also will say there have been some rumors about a Bubba Chandler call-up coming soon, the top prospect on the Pirates. He would be in this tier the second he gets called up. He could move up a lot if that first star is amazing. He could be 2 or 3 tiers above, even pushing the top 30. But the second that Bubba Chandler does get called up, he is in this tier. And now here we go, finally, the last tier. We have Brandon Pfaadt, Chris Bassett, Tyler McGill, Clay Holmes, Max Meyer, Luis Castillo, Nick Lodolo, and Casey Mize. Starting with Brandon Pfaadt, I'm really starting to trust him more, but I'm not trusting him enough to meaningfully move him up. The big problem I've always had with Pfaadt is the fact that he doesn't have a good plan against left-handed batters. The plan is still not good, but it's getting better. I'll give him credit for that. There's more changeup, there's more curveball. Something is happening there, but it's still not that great. He did just outduel Yoshinobu Yamamoto and beat the Dodgers a few days ago. Again, I like Pfaadt. I'm close to loving Pfaadt, but I'm not there yet. Then we have Chris Bassett on the Blue Jays. Came out of the gate red hot, but he's very much come back to earth of late. The strikeouts that were elite in those first few starts of the season have really, really trended down for Bassett. That's kind of the Chris Bassett that we expect rather than the one we saw those first couple starts of the year. I still like him. I still trust him. He's kind of like a Seth Lugo light with just a million pitches, kind of fooling hitters left and right. But if I did have to make a prediction, I bet that on the next iteration of this top 50 that's going to come out next month, Chris Bassett's not going to be on it. Then we have my Mets, Tyler McGill and Clay Holmes. I can't believe how much I talk about Tyler McGill on this channel, but the guy's been awesome this year. The fastball command is better. He's more confident with the sinker. The slider is more depth. The changeup has more run. Everything looks like it's there for McGill. The Mets have done a really good job in nursing him along, kind of helping him find his confidence, find the right pitch mix, find everything he needs to be with the stuff that he has, because it's awesome to be a good starting pitcher. The command has not been as good recently, which again, that's kind of pushed McGill a few points down this rank, so I have to be honest with you guys, but I like McGill a lot moving forward. I think he's underrated right now in fantasy baseball. Same with a guy like Clay Holmes, who Clay Holmes could go supernova as the season goes on if he figures out how to work more deeply into games. He's getting more confident with his kick changeup. He's finding good spots to mix in his four-seam fastball, sneak it in. The slider command's been a lot better. The sweeper is still nasty. If Clay Holmes can get over this hump and pitch deeply into games, he could be a top 35 pitcher rest of the season because the strikeouts are there, the ground balls are there. He's proven the depth of his repertoire. Clay Holmes is someone that, if you are looking for another buy low, I kind of like him for that. Also, as of right now, I'm recording this video on Friday afternoon. Clay Holmes is pitching tonight. He still has not allowed a home run this season. That's so cool. And for a guy like Holmes, who has that big sinker that comes into guys, hard to homer him up. It is really hard to square him up. He does so many things well. I'm really excited that this experiment has worked well for the Mets. Then the last few guys here, Max Meyer on the Marlins has flashed the ace upside with his 14 strikeout game, but as a slider primary guy, and he's a heavy slider primary guy, if he loses the command in that slider a little bit, he can have bad outings like he had a couple starts ago. Sometimes he misses tons of bats, sometimes he misses none. That's because everything is balanced on the foundation of that slider. So when it's there, it's amazing. When it's not, it's not. He's still really good, but a little too inconsistent to move up a tier. Then Luis Castillo. This is kind of a sad song. This is all the regression that we feared coming to life. His fastball's down in velocity again. His slider's not missing as many bats. I just don't really see the ceiling for Castillo at this point. But Castillo also is notoriously slow starter. So maybe give him another month, he can move back up these rankings. Of course, you're not dropping him, you're holding him, but you're not getting the Luis Castillo you probably thought you were getting a month ago. Then the last two guys, Nick Lodolo. Big thing for Lodolo, he's healthy. If he's on the mound, he's probably going to be a good pitcher. The results are good. He's not allowing many runs, but the strikeouts are not where we want them to be for a guy that really could be considered like a top 30, 40 guy yet. And I'll always hate that home park he's pitching in. Now the last guy, number 50 on the Big 50, Casey Mize. He's just been straight up awesome this season. He's also the fourth Tiger to appear on this list, where the Tigers are joining the Phillies as the only teams of 4 stars in this list. So shout out to Tigers and Phillies for that pitching development. Mize is healthy. His fastball sitting 95 miles an hour with adequate life. It's good enough to get by. He's introduced a new slurve into his repertoire this season. Not many guys throw a true slurve in baseball these days. It's just Mize and Jose Barrios off the top of my head. And that slurve is getting nearly 50% whiffs against right-handed batters. And that's mixing in very evenly against righties with his fastball, his sinker, and his splitter. It's just a tough at-bat right now against Mize. He has a lot of ways to get you out. He might have just finally be good. It might have clicked for Mize. But all right, guys, that's the end of the 50 pitchers. A couple honorable mentions here. Guys who were kind of close to the rankings but didn't get in. Grant Holmes, Kevin Gausman, Ryan Weathers, who's making some rehab starts. Could be back soon for the Marlins. Matthew Boyd's been amazing. Landon Roop, who I love. Great underlying stuff. No results yet. Not so good results yet. Taj Bradley, I hope it comes together one day. Ben Kasparius has been awesome. If the Dodgers will just take the training wheels off. Tony Gonsolin's looked really good in his return from injury. Jackson Jobe, close. Not really there yet. Jose Soriano, David Peterson. Matthew Liberatore has been amazing out of the chute. Want to see a little bit more from him, but he was probably the next guy on this list, him and Grant Holmes. And also Gunnar Hoagland. I want to see him pitch more for the Athletics, but really showed me a lot in the first 2 starts of his career. But again, thank you guys so much for being here, watching the video, supporting the channel. I appreciate it so much. I love doing these pitcher videos. This is truly my favorite stuff to do. So please, any questions you guys have in the comments, if you want to roast my rankings, if you want to ask me about guys who didn't make it, if you want to ask me about trades, anything you got, I'm always going to answer all the comments. Again, thank you guys so much. Please subscribe to this channel if you want to get more videos. Waiver wire video coming on Monday. Going to be more positional rankings coming out, a buy low, a sell high soon. Thank you guys again so much, and I'll see you next time.